الله أكبر.
حي على الصلاة.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
حي على الصلاة.
الله أكبر.
I rise giving the highest of praise to the Most High God Allah and the highest of honors to His Holy Prophet Noble Jew Ali, Islam. I'd like to extend those honors to the forerunner, the harbinger, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, who did warn and stir up the nations. I'd like to extend those honors to the Sheikh staff, our Grand Governor, Grand Sheikh, Sheikh Heru Renisi-El, the office of the chairman, Sheikh Rashid Ibn Halim Bey, the office of the secretary, Sister Lamadia Bey, all of the sheikhs, Vanguard staff, pardon self, all of the Ils and Beys and visitors in the groves, Islam. I like to honor my parents, often give them a hard time. However, they were great, and we're commanded to honor our fathers and our mothers, that our days may be long upon the earth land which the Lord thy God has given thee. So, we know who are spiritual, who are ancient, who are most high fathers and mothers are or is, which is Allah and the Elohim, but we should also honor our earthly parents. So I extend honors to my parents. I extend honors to my family, my wife who couldn't be here tonight. The boys were asleep when I got home, so she's with them. So I'd like to extend honors to my wife. So I was in the law library, and first of all, Grand Governor, that is such a high honor, and I'm proud of this temple. I'm proud of you. I've learned so much from you, and I see how you have changed lives. So, you deserve much more than that. But to receive that on the Prophet's birthright is a high honor, and I'm just proud to be a member and a part of Temple 19. So I give honors to this temple for just allowing me a platform to, express myself in the best way that I can, being a student. So, Islam. I was in the law library, and I kept getting information this week about the the rejected stone being the cornerstone, and I won't go in there. But we know what the Bible says about it in Psalms. We know what Justice says about it in the book of Matthew. I've been getting all that, and then the other day I came across this book. So, there are no strange happenings. But before I get into this, I want to draw from the Prophet from chapter 47 of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And that's XLVII, chapter 47, Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. The inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. Old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan. His father Ham and his family were second. Then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of Amexem, the first true and divine name of Africa, the dividing of the land between the Father and the Son. The dominion of Cush, northeast and southeast Africa, and northwest and southwest was his father's dominion of Africa. In later years, many of their brethren from Asia and the Holy Lands joined them. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Africa, they were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking new homes. Their dominion and inhabitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa, across Great Atlantis, even unto the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands before the great earthquake which caused the great Atlantic Ocean. The River Nile was dredged and made by the ancient pharaohs of Egypt in order to trade with surrounding kingdoms. Also, the Niger River was dredged by the great pharaoh of Egypt in those ancient days for trade, and it extends eastward from the River Nile, westward across the great Atlantic. It was used for trade and transportation. According to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all the inhabitants of Africa were and are of the human race, descendants of the ancient Canaanite nation from the Holy Land of Canaan. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today without doubt or contradiction. There is no one who is able to change man from the descendant nature of his forefathers unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator, Allah himself. These holy and divine laws are from the Prophet Noble Jew Ali, the founder of the Uniting of the Moorish Science Temple of America. These laws are to be strictly preserved by the members of all temples of the Moorish Science Temple of America, that they will learn to open their meeting and guide it according to the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So I'll stop right there. The title of this book is New Age Now Begins, and it was written by Paige Smith, is the author. And it was written in 1976, and Page is P-A-G-E. And I forget his first name, but Page is his middle name. And he goes by Paige Smith. And this is 2 volumes, and this is volume 1. So, a new age begins. So in chapter 6 is entitled Indians and Settlers. And it reads, the encounter between the English colonists and the American Aborigines, to whom the English gave the general name of Indian because of the darkness of their skin, was of the most dramatic meetings between different cultures in all history. The Indians were divided into innumerable tribes that spoke some 500 different tongues and dialects. This was one of the facts about the Native Americans that led to the speculation of the colonists that the Indians might be the lost tribes of Israel, once a single people, but now cursed by God for their presumption in seeking to build the Tower of Babel and condemned to be divided and speak in a multitude of strange tongues. So, right when it goes into the descriptions of the American Aborigines, the English, it says the English gave the general name of Indians because of the darkness of their skin. So later on in this chapter, it gets into how, Captain John Smith was basically courting, for lack of a better term in this setting, Pocahontas or Mataoka. This book calls her Princess Pocahontas. And it also talks about how she ended up marrying John Rolfe. And she took the name Rebecca Rolfe. And on the way back from England, she died. It didn't tell how. I mean, I've heard stories about how she died, but it doesn't tell how she died, but it said that she died on the way back from England. It goes on to say, and part of my reason for sharing this with you is to get in perspective who was here when the Europeans got here. The Moors, the ancient Moabites, we've been here before the Great Atlantic Ocean. We were here, centuries before the Europeans arrived. But it goes on to say, unfortunately, few colonists followed the example of John Rolfe. And that example being that John Rolfe married a Native American. Unfortunately, but he says unfortunately, and it'll get into why. Unfortunately, few colonists followed the example of John Rolfe. William Byrd, in A History of the Dividing Line, lamented the fact, for after all, he wrote, with more facetious than wisdom, a sprightly lover is the most prevailing missionary that can be sent among these or any other infidels. Nor would the shade of skin have been reproached at this day, for if a Moor may be washed white in 3 generations, surely an Indian might have been blanched in 2.
Wow. Wow. Come on, brother.
Byrd was of the opinion that the Indian women would have made altogether as honest wives for the first planters as the damsels they used to purchase from aboard ships. It is strange, therefore, that any good Christian should have refused a wholesome, straight bedfellow when he might have had so fair a portion with her a claim to some of the Indian lands, as well as the merit of saving her soul.
Wow.
I'll also go on to some of what William Penn said, and I'll yield the floor. William Penn gave a vivid account of his initial meeting with the Indians of Pennsylvania.
Come on.
Hold it back.
I mean, they're talking about us here. I mean, the demonstration of love that was shown in filling everything. I mean, it's still going on today, obviously, and the whole world wants to be a part of that. William Penn gave a vivid account of his initial meeting with the Indians of Pennsylvania and a close account of their appearance and customs. For their persons, they are generally tall, straight, well-built, and of singular proportion. They tread long and clever, and mostly walk with a lofty chin, of complexion black, but by design as the gypsies in England. They grease themselves with bear's fat clarified, and using no defense against sun or weather. Their skins must need be swarthy. Their eye is little and black, not unlike a straight-looked Jew. The thick lip and flat nose, so frequent with East Indians and blacks, are not common among them, for I have seen as commonly European-like faces among them of both sexes, as on your side the sea. So in this land, you had Asiatics with woolly to wavy hair, wide noses to thin noses, thick lips to thin lips.
That's right.
I mean, just like we see amongst ourselves today.
That's right.
Only back then we weren't quite Negro black in color.
Islam, man. That's right.
We kept our own, let me just read, we kept our own customs and traditions, and it wasn't until we started to convert into Christianity that we lost our way of life and fell into slavery.
That's right.
They're demonstrating here the same thing that our prophets demonstrating to us. But let me keep going. Their language is lofty yet narrow, but like the Hebrew, one word serves in the place of 3. I must say that I know not a language spoken in Europe that hath words of more sweetness or greatness in accent and emphasis than theirs. For instance, Aptarachtan, Rancoros, Aziktan, Shakamakon, all of which are names of places and have grandeur in them. So then it talks about how when children were born, they were washed and plunged in the cold water, and it says here to harden them. But having wrapped them in a clout, they laid them on a straight thin board, a little more than the length and breadth of the child, and swallowed it fast upon the board, where all Indians have flat heads, and thus carry them on their backs. Their diet is maize or Indian corn, diverse ways prepared, sometimes roasted in the ashes, sometimes beaten and boiled with water, which they call hominy. They also make cakes not unpleasant to eat. Kind of like my mother. Kind of like the Moabites is here that night we had that feast. I mean, I give honors for that, because I mean,
look forward to it.
What I do, we say it once a month or something, but I don't, we got to get that back going.
They're planning it.
They're planning it. All right.
They got you.
I know we have, motherly duties and, wife
Seven,
duties and
boy.
things. Okay,
It's in the laws.
I'll put it out. It's in the law. All right.
Praise God.
They have likewise several sorts of beans and peas that are good nourishment,
That's right.
and the woods and rivers are their larder. They are great concealers of their own resentments, brought to it, I believe, by the revenge that have been practiced among them. In either of these, they are not exceeded by the Italians. But in liberality they excel. Nothing is too good for their friend. I'm going to demonstrate a little chapter 25 here, but give them a fine gun, coat, or other thing, it may pass 20 hands before it sticks. Light of heart, strong affections, but soon spent. The most merry creatures that live, feast, and dance perpetually. They never have much nor want much. Wealth circulateth like the blood. All parts partake. If they are ignorant of our pleasures, they are also free from our pains. I'm going to repeat that. If they are ignorant of our pleasures, they are also free from our pains. They are not disquieted with bills of lading in exchange, nor perplexed with chancery suits and exchequer reckonings. We sweat and toil to live. Their pleasure feeds them. I mean, they're hunting, fishing, and fowling. They eat twice a day, morning and evening. Their seats and table are on the ground. Since the European came into these parts, they are grown great lovers of strong liquors, rum especially. If they are heated with liquors, they are restless till they have enough to sleep. That is their cry. Some more and I will go to sleep. But when drunk, one of the most wretched spectacles in the world. Didn't the prophet say, imitate him? He doesn't smoke and drink.
That's right.
They're telling you we get out of ourselves when presented with these things. The justice they have is pecuniary. In case of any wrong or evil fact, be it murder itself, they atone by feast and presents of their wampum, which is proportioned to the quality of the offense or person injured, or of the sex they are of. For in case they kill a woman, they pay double. And the reason they give is that she breedeth children, which men cannot do.
Islam. Praise Allah.
I mean,
Wow.
our ancestors, our forefathers and foremothers put the worth of a woman twice
Absolutely.
of that of a man.
That's right.
Didn't the prophet say we should have a strong respect for womanhood?
Islam, boy. People.
Yours and mine, ours, his, hers, were not the determinative words for the Indians that they were for it says, white man. The Indian did not think that the land was his in the sense that the white man insisted that it was his property. The whole notion of buying and selling land was so alien to the Indian that while he could understand driving an enemy off a hunting range or general territory, he had no notion of marking off a specific area as belonging in perpetuity to some individual tribe, and certainly not to an individual Indian. So I won't go too much further. I mean, he even ends this chapter as saying the so-called Indian. So, that I just wanted to share that with the Moors. We can see how enemies can, they've studied Hannibal. They've studied, Sun Tzu, Audubon. They studied these things. They studied divide and conquer. So even in their literature, you come to a land and look at the same group of people, but you name this. He's a Moor. He's an Indian. He's a Negro. He's a black. Division. But our forefathers said, let there be no division among you. The prophet brought us the degrees of salvation, Allah, and unity. So we should practice these things. Our nationality is Moorish American. All right? We're Moorish Americans because we're descendants of Moroccans born in America. Even from the European records, you know, they'll drop it in there, you know, more. I mean, it's there for everyone to see. You know, olive complexion, and you know, you go to an olive bar. Go to an olive bar. You know, go to what is it? Whole Foods, and look at the olive bar. Look at how many shades of the olive there are. All different shades. So, to be a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America, you know, the prophet teaches us in Acts 6 that we must proclaim our nationality. All right. So that is my message to you, and that is my measure for this evening. Honors to everyone for listening. And are there any questions? Yes. Yes. New Age Now Begins by Page Smith, P-A-G-E. And there are 2 volumes, and this is in volume 1. With that, I leave you as I came in peace.
Allahu Akbar.
حي على الصلاة.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
حي على